Hi, Royce Morales. Once again, I'm here to talk to you about anger. I hope you were able to listen to my first recording about anger. Actually, all of my recordings in some way are about anger because it is such a human emotion. We all have it, but unfortunately, most of the time, we either suppress it or judge it as being bad or become violent with it. We do all kinds of things. But I want to talk to you today about the fact that anger can be from love. Anger can be an amazing tool of transformation, not only for yourself, but for others. But unfortunately, most of the time, like I said, it's coming from fear. So just to kind of state again what I did state in some previous videos, most of the time when we're feeling angry, or as I call it, in a button, it's just because a fear was triggered, a belief system was triggered. And what really was triggered is something that we did that we're in denial about. So we get really pissed at those others out there instead of taking a look at what's being reflected to us about ourselves. And it can happen instantly. So we do something and we suppress it, or we justify it, or think, oh yeah, that's no big deal. And then all of a sudden we're angry at whoever it is that we did that to. So that's how anger works, but I'm digressing. Let's talk about how anger can really be coming from a loving place. Now think about it. There are a lot of people in this world that have changed the world with their anger. Let's see, Mother Teresa, she was pissed off all the time. Joan of Arc, Harriet Tubman, Rosa Parks, all those people were coming from pure, loving, want to change the world anger. And the difference between that type of anger and the anger I was just referring to, which is fear-based, is that this is coming from a pure place. It's not coming from a button. It's not coming from a fear. It's coming from kind of an intuitive knowingness place that this is what's going to wake people up. I've done that in my classes. I've had people that were so stuck in certain situations, and my higher consciousness was like, Royce, you've got to wake them up. They're not getting it. And so I would consciously choose to respond to them in a very loving yet angry tone. And they would kind of wake up to that because nothing else was working. So as long as you're coming from love, you will get amazing responses. But of course, the challenge is to come from pure love and to not be pretending that you're coming from love and acting like you're coming from love, because that's not going to work. Those mirrors are going to show you, as I keep talking about mirrors, if you're pushing something down, it's going to come up somewhere on the other side of that seesaw. So let's talk about what is anger usually. As I've already said, it usually comes from some kind of fear being triggered, something showing us something about ourselves, we get pissed off. A lot of times anger comes from a need that we're unwilling to express. So perhaps we are feeling the need for somebody to pay attention to us. And instead of saying, hi, you know what, I need a couple of minutes of your undivided attention and love and maybe a hug, I don't do that because I maybe don't feel deserving of that. And all of a sudden I get pissed off. So that's what a lot of times anger comes from. And if we just satisfy that need, or at least recognize it and acknowledge it, sometimes the anger just dissipates. So anger a lot of times is a way for us to not deal with our sadness. In our society, unfortunately, most of the time, sadness is looked upon as a weakness. You know, we shouldn't feel sad, so we cover it over by being super happy or look at the bright side or whatever. And all of a sudden, we are angry. So if you take a look at what's really going on that's being covered up, that's what the anger is trying to show you. So those painful emotions. Anger gives us a false sense of power. In fact, I would say most of the time when we feel that anger, it's because we feel powerless. We don't deserve to be an empowered person for a lot of different reasons that I've gone into in other videotapes, and I'm sure I'll talk more about. But if we don't deserve to be empowered and do our purpose and fully express who we are, there's a part of us that is subconsciously pissed all the time at ourselves. So how does that come out? Well, it comes out in anger, it comes out as blame, it comes out as feeling like a victim and trying to suppress other people and all that stuff that we do. So it's a false sense of power, and it might feel good for a moment, but then we have one more thing to beat ourselves up about. It's like, oh, not only do I feel bad about myself, but now I just dumped it all over on you. So it gives us one more reason to beat ourselves up. Temporary boost of our self-esteem. So, what else to say about anger? Oh, I just wanted to give you a quick story about one of my students and what she realized. She had a job, and she found herself being so angry at her boss all of the time. Now, needless to say, when you're angry at your boss, it's kind of not really appropriate to be expressing that anger. So she was holding on to it all the time, but it would kind of come out here and there. And it was interesting because her boss was equally pissed at her all the time. So they had this thing going on, and they could never talk about what was really going on. So she decided to do some inner work with me. And what she got in touch with was a couple of things. The first thing was that her anger was really her intuition that was telling her, you know what, you're really not supposed to be at this job. And it wasn't from a button, it was from a real pure sense of it's time to move on. Now, the difference in that sort of a situation is, when I say it wasn't coming from a button, it wasn't coming from her needing to flee or make her boss wrong or, hate the situation. She just really felt done with it, complete, finished, from a higher consciousness place. The other thing she got in touch with was a part of her that didn't feel deserving of taking that next step. She really fought with that, and it was like, oh God, what if I can't find a job? And what if, all the what ifs started happening to her. So she decided that she was going to take a risk, and she was going to turn in her resume to someplace, and she did. And she was absolutely blown away because she was hired immediately. And it turned out that this was her absolute dream job. And I know, and she knows also, that if she had been coming from buttons and needing to leave the situation she was in because she was so angry at her boss, it never would have happened. So that's the importance of really getting to a clean, pure place with whatever choices that you make. And if you're coming from a button and a fear and, having to make somebody wrong, it's not going to work. There's going to be stops to it. Strange, bizarre stops, but stops nonetheless. And if there aren't, eventually you'll find out, maybe I shouldn't have tried to make that choice. I've had situations like that happen in my own life where, yeah, I wasn't coming from a pure place, but I ended up, the door opened for me and I ended up making a change. But eventually I discovered, oh, yeah, I still need to deal with this. I can't really run from it like I thought I could. So how can anger be expressed from love? Well, again, if you take a look inside and you're absolutely clear that you're not coming from a button, you're not coming from fear or reactiveness, but you're coming from an intuitive place of knowing that what you need to say is going to help somebody. What you need to say is going to wake somebody up. All those women that I mentioned before, they knew what they were here to do, and they knew the importance of it. And I can't tell you if they weren't completely coming from a pure place, but I know that what they created on this planet ended up being so important. So take a look inside when you're about to express something. And if you're coming from a button, I would say do some inner work. I'm available. Take a look inside, see what's really going on, what's being mirrored. Part of you that's showing up in that anger towards somebody else is the mirror that you need to look at. But if you're pretty clear that it's coming from a very conscious, intuitive, higher consciousness place of love, then go for it. Give yourself permission for that. Embrace your anger. It doesn't make you a bad person. It really doesn't. So, but be responsible with it and trust what gets mirrored. So if you do express something and you were thinking it's from a pure place and it ends up backfiring in your face in some way, then take a look at that too. Maybe it wasn't coming from a pure place. So if you need some help with all of this, if you want to lovingly change the world and you know that maybe this world needs a little kick in the butt from you, let's work on it. Give me a call. You can find all my contact information at roycemorales.com, and I'd love to work with you. Please hit subscribe and like. Hopefully you've liked what I've had to say. It might have pushed some buttons, but that's okay. Thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to seeing you and talking to you again.